Hello everyone, step day 2. Entrepreneur Middle East is with Peji Canani, regional lead for startups at Carta. Welcome Peji, please tell us more about Carta and its expansion in the UAE.
Thank you, Tamara, for having me. Great to be back at Step. It's my second step here now. So Carta really expanded into the Middle East officially about 14 months ago. Company's been around for about 12 years based out of Silicon Valley. And we're really here to support the private capital ecosystem. And that's everything from the LP putting the money into the fund, and then the fund funding these incredible startups and entrepreneurs we see around us. So, and what we're seeing here is this incredible ecosystem and convergence of these players from the government entities and the LPs coming into the regions, whether that's family offices, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds. The fund managers, the ecosystem is still nascent, but we're really seeing this uptick in first-time fund managers, and also the established funds creating fund 2, fund 3, and more going into the growth equity side. And then obviously what's fueling that is these incredible entrepreneurs, right? Backed by these free zones and this regulatory environment, which is really supporting more and more startups, not only homegrown startups, but also international startups coming here and building.
So to present a little bit more your solution, tell me about some of the most interesting achievements and give me real life examples of what is Carta actually doing for both sides, investors and entrepreneurs.
Sure. So if you think about the private markets, there's a few things which make it different than public markets. First of all, it's not transparent, right? We don't know the cap tables, the valuations, the prices of these companies. There's not standardization in reporting, and there's less liquidity than the public markets. And so Carta is really looking to bridge this gap between public markets and private markets with these three elements. And we're seeing more companies stay private for longer as well. So the need for this innovation becomes more important. Historically, these companies are running on spreadsheets and, excessive legal fees. Carta is a software technology company which really bridges this gap between the founders, the GPs, and the LPs.
And give us some examples for employees and entrepreneurs, how to take their employees together on their vision. You were telling me about one of the biggest region success stories and why it integrated this solution as well. So tell me more about that for our readers as well.
For sure. So we just had Magnus from Kareem on stage. And what an incredible story for the region, right? And what Kareem done really well, they had an ESOP program, so an employee stock ownership program, where they had a small piece of ownership distributed to all their employees. In this region, it's hasn't been as ubiquitous as our friends in the States or in Europe, but we're seeing a shift. And more founders are becoming aware that the ESOP is a strategic tool in order to build a culture of ownership, to attract talent, to retain talent. We know how important talent is. And what it also does, it creates this flywheel effect of liquidity in the region. Kareem exit generated 130 plus, millionaires who then on went to build incredible companies, which are now fueling the startup ecosystem. So our vision really is to equip founders with the data, the technology, and the resources to be able to execute and distribute these ESOP plans to help the economy.
So you're basically working on a mindset shift in this region in that regard. So what are the usual misunderstandings? And can you give us explanation for a few of them, and maybe what you usually encounter when talking to founders?
Totally. Totally. I think that there's a shift in mindset from, this region being a short-term transient location to a home. It's really home for a lot of people now, and people are staying for much longer. And the incentivization plans are reflected in that. So that's where the ESOP of having a 4-year kind of lock-in agreement makes more sense. So this is one big shift. And the other one is around liquidity. Does this actually turn into real cash in my pocket? It's not just a piece of paper. And more we're seeing these examples, not necessarily via IPO, but strategic M&A exits. We're seeing a lot of exits via M&A and strategic acquisition in the region. There's one really great story which we're proud of. It's actually in Africa, but actually backed by a lot of from GCC investors, Money Points. So Money Point is one of the largest digital banks in Nigeria, and we supported them with what they call in the US a tender offer, a secondary, which was an employee share buyback. So MoneyPoint decided to buy back these ESOPs from their employees, and over $100 million of liquidity was unlocked as part of this, and all facilitated through Carta software platform. So, this is life-changing money for employees, buying their first houses or, funding their kids' education. So we're seeing more mechanisms to drive liquidity as companies are staying private longer, which is super exciting for the region, right? And it's really shifting that mindset from the startup perspective, but also the funds, because they need to return these. A lot of these funds are coming up for expiration, and they need to return money back to the LPs.
Talking about the future, where do you see the region going if they accept these new innovative ideas and accept them already, but allow them to grow here and for your business as well?
I mean, Carter's decision to expand into the Middle East is really a reflection of the growth here, the government support, the level of legislation and regulatory support. We've seen Abu Dhabi Finance Week, the capital of capital, the incredible amount of foreign investment coming into the region. We'll see that only increasing. We'll see stronger ties to the rest of the world. We have offices across Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, London, and the US. And we're seeing, greater connectivity between these hubs, and this region really being that focal point where everyone gathers together.
The last one, I want you to advise, because you're regional lead for startups. Give me few pieces of advice for startups, why they should consider solutions like this, and at what point in their journey, when is the right time, not too early, not too late, to consider this?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of the startups here are at that pre-seed or seed level. And what I really encourage startups is to start thinking about your governance early. We see time and time again stories of startups, accelerating through growth. They don't take care of their cap table. They don't have the right agreements with their employees or their advisors or their investors. And then it comes back and, it harms them in the future. So it doesn't mean not being agile. It doesn't mean not being innovative. They're not contradictory factors. You can still say nimble and agile, but just make sure your cap table is clean and ready. You understand if you're raising safe notes, for example, how they're converting, what terms are you issuing these safe notes at? Because when you get to your Series A round and you're doing your first institutional round with VCs, that's going to take a lot of time and it's going to be a lot of learning. So educate yourself early, understand kind of your growth plans and ambitions, how that maps towards your fundraising plan. And by the way, not all startups need to raise VC funding. It's not, maybe that's not the path for you. But if you do, really understand your equity management from early on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was super interesting and educational. Step Day 2 Entrepreneur Middle East. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.